Welcome to Ascension with V, where we talk about spiritual awakening, ascension, and everything in between. I'm your host, Stashia Jeanette, aka V, and today we have a special guest who's about to take us on a journey with their unique experiences, gifts, and abilities. Iva, please tell us about you and what you do.
Okay. Thank you for having me here. So my name is Iva, and I am currently resonating because I've gone through so many titles. Um,
It's okay, you're multidimensional,
I am.
multifaceted.
Yes, that is exactly it.
Yes.
But right now I feel really aligned to say that I'm a soul alignment mentor because that is
Okay.
really at the heart of what I do, supporting people to really come home to themselves and connect to their soul and intuition and lead a more intentional life, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like, because it's so unique to the person.
Uh,
And so that's one side of me. And then I'm also a Virgo rising. So I recently co-founded Embers Tax and Accounting, where I'm taking my accounting, and I could share a little more about my journey, but sharing my more human skills that are more kind of earthy and grounded. And really the intention with Embers is financial empowerment, is that
okay.
the tax and accounting experience doesn't have to be stressful and daunting. And
Right.
I'm really excited to bring that into the spiritual space, and
Absolutely.
support other spiritual entrepreneurs with that. So that's kind of where I'm at in life. And it's a really exciting time. I feel the most aligned and grounded and just like so connected to spirit more than ever before. So
Yeah.
definitely my Saturn return energy is like got me back on track.
Yes, you're like, "Oh, snap, we're in it, in the zone."
Yeah.
Okay, so Eva, tell me a little bit about your spiritual awakening, how you went through it, what it was like for you, all the
Mm.
signs and symptoms, and then how your spiritual gifts and abilities started to emerge, and what were they?
Ooh, okay. So I went to school for accounting. I got my bachelor's and master's and was on the way to be a CPA.
Okay.
So I was studying for the CPA. I discovered this YouTuber, Lior Alexandra, binge watched all her content. She was talking about manifestation, law of attraction, energy, creating your reality. And I was just so fascinated by the fact that, like, this woman was literally like had a career of just sharing her wisdom and being herself. And I
Yeah.
was like, I want that. Like, I didn't know what that looked like at the time, but I was like, I
Yeah.
could feel it. And I made a promise to myself when I was younger that no matter what I chose to do in life, I wanted to wake up and be passionate about what I was doing. I wanted to
Right.
feel alive and excited and show up and support people. So it's been such a journey, and I'm so grateful for like all the past versions of me that have been courageous to walk this path. Um
Right.
so so going back to my to kind of my spiritual awakening moment. So there was a catalyst moment when I was, kind of learning to meditate, and there was a moment where I was being really present, just looking out onto this lake, and all of a sudden I could like feel something within me starting to ask me like, is this CPA path, is this career path really what you want? Like, is that the path for you? And it kind of just like bubbled up, and just like I could feel it. And at the time I didn't even have the words for like what had happened, but now looking
Right.
back I realized like that was literally my soul
Oh,
higher self, inviting me to really reevaluate like what direction do I really want to go. Because as a kid, I was always really fascinated by like intuition, and like I believed in ghosts and spirits, and but I
yeah.
didn't have, back then we did not have the resources
At all,
to.
and it was, like, super taboo to talk about.
Yes, so it was very, like, underground, like, you would have to, like, drive by a home that had, like, a psychic reading
Yeah.
sign to, like,
Yeah.
find someone who did that kinda stuff,
Right.
and now it's, like, everywhere you turn, so it's
Yeah.
beautiful, so
Right.
many options and avenues to explore that side of us.
Yeah.
But so back then, I didn't know anyone who was doing any of it. And so I didn't know what that looked like, but I could feel like I thought about Lior and what she was doing, and I could feel that like the CPA and like climbing the corporate ladder was not going to be my path. Like that was
Yeah.
my dad's dream for me, but it
Uh,
wasn't my dream for me.
right.
So that was the catalyst. Then I had to go talk to my parents and let them know like I'm stepping away from this. This isn't for me. Still to this day, don't really have the support and acceptance
Yep.
around that.
Yep.
And I'm happy to speak on that too, because that's been
Yeah. Yeah.
parents and family has been such a big part of my journey, and they've been such amazing teachers in like resilience and really truly walking your talk. And so I stepped away from the CPA, had no idea. I just knew like something about intuition and spirituality, like that's something I'm interested in. So I'm just gonna follow that. So that
Right.
was the only breadcrumb I had. And then I was listening to a lot of podcasts at the time. The Your Own Magic podcast. I forget her name because I haven't listened to it in a bit. I think Raquel Mantra, that's her name. So I was listening a lot to her podcast, and she had a guest speaker who talked about her psychic boot camp, Brie Melanson. So I ended up investing in the psychic boot camp. I ended up connecting to a mentor who taught me the animal communication, um, through my local library. Like all these things just kind of started to fall into place, and I just started, connecting to resources and teachers, to really support me in expanding and exploring that side of me, that spiritual side. So that's kind of my spiritual awakening journey.
Nice. Yeah, like and that's the thing I think that it's always something that like a tower moment situation that sparks us into the and then again, as you said, the family aspect of it of being like, so this is what I'm doing, and that's something that I would love for you to also talk about because again,
Mhm.
that's something that we frequently deal with where it's a daunting task to have to go to the family who wanted you to be this one character on this one path, and that's not you at all. And then for me personally realizing like, oh, this was just like a persona that I put on to
Mhm.
appease them or to fit in. Hearing you say that, like I'm like, yes, this is a thing. I'd love for
Mhm.
you to talk about it.
Yeah, so I think now, and a lot of this is like reflections that I've realized as I kind of, after I've done a lot of like the healing
Right.
and self-reflection awareness work, to then look back and be like, oh, okay, I
Oh,
can see like what happened there. Whereas at the
yeah,
time, like it was not clear what was happening, and I just felt so rejected and misunderstood.
exactly.
But now I
Exactly.
can see like they were holding on to this, like you said, like a persona, an identity of me and who they thought I was going to be. And
Right.
then they couldn't quite release that and meet me where I was at and
That.
who I was, wanting to express as, because also I grew up as a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So, always like putting on, like always trying to regulate other people's
Yes.
emotions, and trying to show up and be this good girl.
Yeah.
Um, when I started stepping out of that, and making choices for myself and just showing up and saying, this is me, this feels good to me. Like I got 3 tattoos, and then I hid them from my parents because they weren't
Yeah.
going to accept that. And then when I left the house, I ended up sharing them because I was like, well, you're probably going to find out anyway, and I felt comfortable enough.
Right.
um but so like with the like family piece, I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and the process I'm in right now, is actually forgiveness. And
Yeah.
it's like knowing that they have a higher, like, I believe in, we all have a higher self or soul or divine essence, whatever you want to call that.
Right.
within us. And we
Right.
have the choice to choose to live from that in our heart, or to choose to listen to the stories and in our ego. And I don't
Right.
believe our ego is necessarily bad. I believe in
Right.
this holistic approach of, it's important to accept all of us and find a way to work in harmony. But when people do live from their ego, they're so clouded by the stories and everything. And so they're not tapping into the heart. They're not really able to meet you. They're not giving them self love
Right.
and support and compassion. So they can't give that to you because they don't know how to even receive it for themselves,
Selves.
or how to give it to themselves. So that was one of the biggest ahas that I had. I learned it from Bashar. Was, they have a higher self, and that higher self does love you, and it does unconditionally accept you, and it does want you to pursue your dharma and life purpose. So
Right.
even if their human self isn't tapping into that, and they aren't able to be like respond in that way, knowing that part of them does feel that was like such a huge shift for me in my
Right.
relationship with them after years of anger and hurt
Hurt.
and just feeling so misunderstood. And like, and then after that too, it gave me so much resilience to where
Mhm.
I've had some people be like, I mean, I haven't had it too bad. I've seen other people have it worse, but I've had a few people on the internet not be very kind to me. And what's interesting is in those moments, I'm like, you know what? Like my own parents, like took me through this initiation. If I can accept my own
Man.
parents
Man.
misunderstanding me, like I'm sorry, I don't know you, but like this is
Right.
not as
Get
painful
out of
as
here.
that.
Exactly this. Literally, I said the same thing. Like, man, you don't even know. Like, I was forged in the fire. If you
Mhm.
think, and again, but like you said, like it still does. Like when you read stuff, because that's not how we are, like that's not us. Like just tapping into your energy. I feel like you're not the person that goes to somebody's social media and you're like, you this and this,
Mhm.
and then just tries to drag them down. But like because we aren't that way to others, it's kind of baffling and mind-blowing to
Mhm.
know that others are like very freely that way to us, and we're like,
Mhm.
I don't understand, but
Mhm.
it is our childhood and our upbringing has absolutely been kind of that absolute rite of passage initiation phase, like the base ground foundation for us to handle the things that come at us in the world, and you said it, like that's legit.
Mhm. And as you were sharing, I thought of this quote by Marianne Williamson. I don't know if it's directly from her, or 'cause she shares a lot on like the Course of Miracles. Have you connected to her at all? Are you
Mm-mm,
familiar? Okay.
mm-mm.
Um, there's this book called The Course in Miracles, and it's a little bit like religious-y, but they just that I think they talk more about like Christ consciousness versus
Oh,
like
okay, yeah.
Jesus. So it is different, but basically everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this book changed my life." But I really love Marianne Williamson's perspective on it. I just have been resonating so deeply with what she's been sharing. And she has this quote where it's every act is either an act of love or a call for love. And so that's
Right,
kind
yeah.
of when people act that way, that's kind of what I think of is like, well, it's their hurt parts
Right.
screaming, basically. And ironically, when we're acting from those parts, they get louder and louder and louder.
Absolutely.
It gets louder like for the outside people, but they're actually trying to get us to be present with them. And that's
Mhm.
actually taps into what you were asking me about with IFS, internal family systems. So if you
Okay.
want, we can talk
Yes.
about that if you want, because it's kind of
Yes.
flowing.
Yes, I'm like, segue. See what I'm talking about? The flow, the
The
feng
flow, yeah.
shui?
Uh,
Yes. Go ahead.
our feng shui is on point right now. So IFS is a system by Richard Schwartz. I don't remember what kind of like therapist or psychotherapist or whatever his professional career was, but he discovered basically that like his clients had these like parts within them that were like hurt, and they're basically, he says, like other people call them our inner children, so I think to
Yeah.
him they're synonymous, but basically
Right.
they're like these parts within us that get kind of frozen in time. So as you were going through your childhood, something happened traumatic, whether it's big T or little t trauma, and then
Right.
that part felt like it needed to step into a different role to support you, to cope with that, to protect you in that moment. But then the thing is, they kind of hang on to that role, and then that continues the rest of your life until you connect to them and release them and help them shift out of that role, because it's not their natural state, but they get kind of frozen in time. And it's interesting because when you connect to these parts, you ask them, how old do you think I am? And they always say like a younger age than what you actually are. And so
Yeah.
that's how, and then when you tell them like, one of the practices is tell them how old you actually are. And then a lot of times they're like, oh, like they didn't realize, because they're frozen. Somehow they get like frozen, right? In
Right.
that moment, and stuck on that role. So parts where, so I got certified as a hypnotherapist,
Yeah.
and realized that essentially it's a lot of like inner child work, because all
Yes,
the
it is.
scenes you go back to is like all
Yeah.
from your childhood, unless it's like a past life connection or connected. Sometimes it comes up as like connected to your ancestry. So it's like
Right.
I've had sessions where it's like I'm my dad or my mom or a different ancestor that I've never even met before, and so then you're working on that level too. But
Right.
basically, like, also just in case anyone's not familiar with hypnotherapy, hypnosis, all it is getting you into a deeply relaxed state to access a different part. Your brain goes into that theta relaxed state, and so
State.
you're able
Yeah.
to access those like unconscious memories and energies and everything. So when I was doing the hypnotherapy, I was like, oh, this is a lot of inner child stuff. And then when I learned about Richard Schwartz and IFS, I felt like he was putting words to what I was seeing in sessions with clients.
Right.
But
Yes.
he was like really putting the puzzle pieces together for me,
Together.
like these parts. And then what I love about his system too is he also talks about how, when you work with these parts and you support them, then your higher self starts to come up and just spontaneously will just kind of pop in. And I do a lot of like, we'll connect to your higher self for the support, and every session is very custom and unique to the person in that moment, what support they need. So I never
Right.
know what's going to happen. But yeah, like we work with kind of all of those elements, and it's just so cool. Like we have this whole inner world within
Yes.
us,
Yes.
like, and to just explore it, like, oh, so amazing.
Yeah. And it is. It's that I studied the NLP for a while.
Hmm.
And like you said, I'm like, there's a lot of this that going back through it connects frequently to dealing with, okay, what suppressed trauma was there? And then that trauma came from, again, like your childhood somewhere, like the foundational years of our life. I don't think people realize how big of an impact it truly has for the rest of your life. And also you saying, when you were studying the IFS, you being able to put kind of word to what you had been experiencing and dealing with some of your clients. I've had that frequently as well, where, like I've been doing things, but didn't have the words to be like, oh, this is what this is.
Hmm.
It's interesting to see someone else, again, having relatable, different path, different modality, but similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of shows for me how we have this very interconnected, like you said, this whole world, this whole thing that's just kind of this hodgepodge of energies and consciousness that mixes together.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I want to share.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing I want to share right now that's coming up as you were speaking is what I've learned is that it's never the tool or the
Hmm.
modality that we're using. Like, what I like to encourage people is follow whatever feels fun. Like I've had
Yes,
times where it was human design, gene keys, animal
exactly.
communication, Reiki. Like, you just follow the joy and you'll never be led astray. But
Yes,
remember that your power is in you. You are the
correct.
one doing the alchemy. You are
Yes,
literally the magic where it's
yes,
happening. So I just share that because I've given my power away to modalities, to
yep,
coaches, to programs. And so that's like such a big part of my message now. And so I just
yep.
wanted to also put that in there.
Yeah, Eva, because again, I wish more people would say this because I get tired of it being the focus of, I said this before, and like no shade to anyone that this falls in, but where my example that I frequently use is where when people go to church, it's like they put the power in the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I'm going to have the pastor pray for me. I'm going to have the congregation pray for me. Or I'm going to have ask the pastor to like, why can't you
Mm-hmm.
go to you? You have the connection to God's source universe.
Mm-hmm.
It's you. You can
Mm-hmm.
do this. And same thing with the modalities, you know. Also, when we elevate, when we grow and ascend and unlock different versions, you know, just as I said to you at the beginning, it's because you're a multidimensional,
Mm-hmm.
multifaceted being. Once you realize that, like, you stop dropping the labels of, like, oh, I have to just be reading oracle cards, or I have to
Mm-hmm.
just be, you know, using tuning forks, or I have to just be doing Reiki, or I have to just be like, you're everything, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. There's a difference between modality and mastery
Right.
where the modality is the tool and you can learn the structure of it. And that's what I did with the hypnotherapy. There was, because I specifically learned RTT, which is rapid transformational therapy by Marissa Peer. And there's a certain structure, but me with my Aquarius stellium, I was like, I'm gonna make this my own.
I'm doing my own way.
I
Same.
just kind of started. Do you have any Aquarius placements?
No, I have to go back and look at my my chart, but all of my entire birth chart is the actual like layout. Like my first house is Aries, my second house is Taurus, my third house is Gemini, my fourth house is
Oh
Cancer, my fifth house is Leo, my sixth house is Virgo, my seventh house is Libra, my eighth house is Scorpio, my ninth house is Sag, my 10th house is Cap, my 11th house is Aquarius, and my 10th house is Pisces.
so you have planets in each one?
Hmm.
Oh my god. Wow. How do you experience that?
It's it's kind of like having multiple people in one body. I mean, everyone thinks that like it's a great thing, but it's not like it. I mean, it is. Don't get me wrong, it is, but like it's a lot to hone in because
Mhm.
as you said, what we've just been speaking on, it's a lot of feeling, first of all, a lot of deconditioning and thinking that you have to be one thing,
Mhm.
you know. Then it's a lot of adapting to knowing that you have parts of literally everything to tap. And that's where I'm at now, is like mastering, trying to master all the parts of it and pulling aspects from each one of
Mhm.
the pieces of the pie, so to speak, you know. And it's had me have to be very okay with not doing things like anybody else, which is why I resonated again with you saying the Aquarius. I'm going to do this my own way because
Mhm.
so many people have been like, you have to do it this way. And I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm also Aries rising. And so
Oh.
Virgo sun, Aries rising, Cancer moon.
Wow, what an interesting combination.
Yes,
Wow.
and a projector in human design.
Do you know what your lines are? Your profile lines for human design?
Uh, I'll have to send it to you later on.
Okay. As you were sharing about, like kind of embracing your full chart, one of the
Hmm.
things that I learned when I dove into human design is that, and this applies to astrology too, because people think that like, oh, well, I'm an Aquarius sun, so like, that's like the energy, like there's almost this like very like I'm stuck in this way mindset that we can get a little trapped in.
That.
But the truth is that we actually have the full chart.
Yes, exactly.
So you have access to, because like the cosmos is constantly moving.
Yes,
So
yes,
those energies are constantly dancing with us, and
yeah,
it's not that just because your sun is in this sign that like that's the only energy you can tap into to like embrace and shine
right,
with. You
right.
have the full chart, and that was what human design really gifted me. When you look at your human design chart and you look at the centers, it's not that your defined gates are what like the only thing you have access to. You have access to the other stuff. It's just that it's not as familiar maybe
Easy.
because you're so much more in the energy of what's defined for you. But that's
Right,
all it means. It doesn't mean that like because you're a Cancer sun you can't tap into Leo energy. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, in different seasons of life. Like, I also say we don't even know what all it means to be a human. Like, we're like
Man,
just starting to figure it out.
man. I'm like literally big on that. Is rough, rough. I've said, like, I'm like, being a human has been the most challenging aspect of me because like I'm so used to I'm so not used to, more familiar and comfortable with the transcendence and being in the heavens and in the galaxy and in the universe, and then obviously we signed up to be here. Like I signed up to be in this, human body and vessel, but it's different. It's difficult to be like,
Mhm.
that's right, I forgot I'm a human, having a human
Mhm.
experience. But yeah, go ahead. Wait, can you hear me?
It's freezing a little.
You're still there?
Okay, now I
Can you?
think we're back.
Okay, I was like, wait, are you still there? Can you hear me? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, have you ever done any kind of like somatic releasing work?
Define that.
So it's like working with like emotional processing and kind of releasing the energy like from your energy field and body.
The only thing that I've ever done is like somatic dance, and like that's something that I
Okay.
I frequently do. So if you
Yeah.
if you ever see me on my social media like doing some dancing, like that's why. And again, a lot of the things that I do, I just get it. I just receive it, but
Mhm.
I don't know the human the physical terminology for a lot of the things that I
Oh,
do.
yeah, I get you. Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, define that.
Yeah, so it's basically like any emotion that has been like unprocessed gets kind of like stuck. So it only takes 90 seconds to fully process an emotion. And kids
Okay.
are like such a beautiful example of this because you'll see them like throw a tantrum for like 10 minutes and then like cry and shake and like get all mad and then like go and play with their friends like the next 20
Yeah.
minutes, like they're like we innately know how to like do this with our body and let our body like release. But when we start getting told like why are you crying, like there's no reason to cry, or you're too emotional, or whatever we were being told, in order to then, this is a very primal thing, like in order to survive and
Right.
belong in the tribe, we start to then suppress and stop expressing and allowing for that expression. And really, I like, for me, I feel like I disconnected from myself, from my
Yeah.
higher self, because of that, because it wasn't accepted, because I was told that it, like only like certain people can have like spiritual gifts and stuff. And
Yeah.
but I was asking because I was gonna offer, like, if it feels aligned for you and totally okay if not, we could do like a little like demo where I could like show you how to do that, and then you have that as like a tool. I just love sharing this because it's like so
Yeah.
simple and anyone can
Let's do
do
it.
it and it's free. So okay. So bring to well, okay, hold on. Let's ground. Sorry. I'm like, let's get into it, girl. Okay, so let's take 3 deep breaths, just grounding into the space, and then bringing to your mind something that is feeling like you are ready to release that, whatever emotion it is. And feel free to share as much or as little as feels safe for you. So you could just share what the emotion is if that feels good.
So, like, sadness and grief.
Okay. And so then tuning into your body, where does that sadness and grief live?
Like my heart.
And is that where both of them feel like they're at, or?
Like the sadness is like heart, the grief is like abdomen.
Okay. So let's go into the sadness first. So just tuning into the sadness that's living in the heart, does it give you like a sensation, or what does it feel like in the heart space, the sadness? Like a
Kind of
shape?
like, it feels kind of like wrenching, kind of heart wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like someone kind of squeezing my heart.
Mm-hmm. So can you ask this sadness if it has anything it would like to share with you right now?
Sorry.
That's okay. All is welcome.
Just saying goodbye to my dog.
Yeah, just giving your time yourself this time and space to just feel it. Just allow yourself to be in that process, knowing you are supported and held. And now I'm going to invite you to start bringing some breath into the sadness. So as you inhale, you're going to envision that and feel that air flowing down into that space where you feel the sadness. And then as you exhale, allowing pieces of it to kind of just float away or melt away. If you also want to work with a different element like fire, water, or give it to Mama Gaia, that whatever feels most resonant for you is true. Just continuing to focus on that space where you feel the sadness and breathing. That's all you have to do. How are you feeling?
Better. Lighter.
Does it feel like the sadness got released from the heart space?
Yeah.
Is there any other energy you would like to place in there instead? Like something that would support you right now?
Yeah. Courage and strength and love.
Mm, that's a beautiful combination. So just giving yourself that moment to go ahead and kind of infuse these beautiful 3 energies to support you as you step forward, and just let me know when that feels complete. And then you mentioned the grief felt like it was in the abdomen. Do you feel good to do kind of the same process with that? Okay. So bringing your awareness to your abdomen where you feel the grief, and what does that one feel like? Is there a texture, a sensation, a shape that comes to you?
Feels hard. Like, I don't know, like a boulder or like a
Mhm.
rock.
So then just focusing on this rock and then beginning to breathe into it. Does it have anything it would like to say to you?
Not immediately. I don't know. I heard let go.
Like it wants to be let go?
I don't know. I guess I just heard let go.
So what's happening as you're breathing into it, or is there a different element you're feeling resonant to use with this one?
I kind of see like the metaphorical jackhammer to the boulder type thing.
Always very effective.
Right.
Beautiful. So just continuing to focus on this boulder and just seeing that jackhammer chipping away at it, allowing the pieces to just fall away.
Now it's like just a pile.
What do you feel like you want to do with the pile?
It needs to, I'm calling in like a, almost like a little whirlwind to pick it up. You know, you see those leaves like in the at the fall time now where they go around in the circle. It's kind of like that, and it's just going up.
Mm, beautiful. And just let me know when that has been cleared. And is there anything you'd like to place in that space that can support you?
Creativity and passion.
And how are you feeling now?
Better.
I love sharing this practice because um, it's so simple, and it also reminds me how we get to use our imagination in our healing. Like, it doesn't get
Yeah.
to be something that we just like leave in childhood. Our imagination, I believe, is actually how we connect to our inner world and the unseen
Yes.
realms.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that with you. And so you now have that in your tool belt to use. And sometimes I'll like take my journal and just write like absolutely everything that is like, even if it's like bothering me like a little bit, I'll write it down.
Yes.
And then I go through
Yes.
like one by one, like, okay, where is this energy in my body? And then that's like the biggest thing I've learned this past year is our body has to be part of the experience. If we're up in our
Yeah.
head and just like talking about things all the time, we're actually can get stuck in like reactivating the emotion and frequency of that trauma, and then we stay
Yeah.
stuck because we're not actually releasing it. But what we just did is you brought awareness and you gave the presence and space to that energy to be able to process and then release. And it doesn't mean you're
Right.
never going to feel sadness or grief again, but you now
Right.
have this practice that can support you in processing so that you don't stay in it as long as maybe before. And I don't know, I
Yes.
found it super helpful. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was that, and it's because like I don't know if it's the Aries in me where Aries is ruled by Mars, so God of War, where I'm just constantly like, look, we like, okay, this is a thing, but I've got to keep going. Like I don't have time to deal with this, or I mean, and it was just kind of like the sit here and deal with it right now thing, instead of being like, okay, this is happening, but I, I can't allow myself that time to deal with it. And honestly, like, that's how I have used that method, because, and again, I think you mentioned it earlier about it being like the primal thing of just trying to stay, survival. This the survival instincts of it, of like having to just be go go go, and not giving myself that grace to unpack things. So it just felt nice to just sit with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also recently, I'm finishing up the tail end of an ebook that I'm doing, and I was working on the manuscript earlier before I came back to my house to film this. And one of the last paragraph that I wrote, which, again, speaking about our flow in feng shui, you literally said one of the last paragraphs that I wrote of this, and I said, you have to, like, when you ignore your emotions and the things that you are dealing with, it will come about in a physical way.
Yes.
The longer you consistently ignore the things, the trauma, the emotion, the pain, the sadness, whatever it is, it will present itself physically. And you have got to have that mind and body physicality part of it. Your body has to be part of it, because otherwise you get stuck, and then it starts presenting physical ailments and issues. And it is a lot of times that chronic pain, or fatigue, or stress will present itself physically because of emotional things that you have not addressed. So
Yeah.
again, being the I feel like the poster child for this, like, I can fully attest to everything you just said. Like, it does. It kind of really F's you in the end if you don't acknowledge your emotions and your feelings when something's coming up.
And it's interesting because as humans, we're so like sometimes we could be afraid to feel it because we don't want to experience that pain. But what I've r- discovered through doing this work is the more you do it, the more like now someone will be like, feel this. And I'm like, okay. And it's like, I don't even think anything of it. But I've had clients who will be like, oh, like I'm afraid to feel it because I don't want to experience it again. And I'm like, well, we're not trying to re traumatize you, but you do have to be present with
You do have
the
to feel it.
sensation in your body. Like, to
Right.
allow it to process, because the reason it's not processing is because you keep avoiding it.
Yes.
and and then on the other side of that is like what you said, like the lightness, the spaciousness that you just create through your body and energy field, and then that allows for space for the things you actually want. And that's why I also like to guide, like let's infuse like an energy that you do want, so that that space could get filled up with something that feels supportive for you. And
Right.
all of that, like, so important. And if you just let your body kind of, if you allow your body to speak to you, like at one point, in the beginning with the sadness, you just started crying, and you just
Yeah.
allow your body to guide you in those moments, it will naturally do whatever it needs, because it's also looking to balance back to your natural homeostasis.
Homeostasis. Yeah.
It wants to be in balance and peace. It's
Right.
not natural for us to be in stress and survival mode. That's not normal.
Right. That's
We've
not
learned
it.
to do
Literally,
that.
but it is, you're right. Like it's not normal, but God has this world done a number on us where we just feel like that's what has to be done. And it's not.
Yeah, I remember listening to a shaman in Latin America, and they asked him, what's like the number one illness that people come here to work on? And he said stress.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I believe that like in short bursts of time, like, yeah, stress can give you like the pressure, or if you're actually in a dangerous situation, like to get out of there, like the adrenaline and everything. The issue is that the thing we don't want is to be constantly living in that
Constant.
state, because
Right.
then also when you're stressed out and you're in survival mode, you can't hear the guidance either. You're freaking
Right.
out. There's so much noise going on. You can't even tap
Yes.
in to get the guidance to support you. And ironically,
Right.
like the stillness and the space you can create is what can support you in those. At least that's what supported me, and that I love supporting others with, is learning how to do that, especially in seasons of transition.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also you mentioned about, the when you take the one thing out, putting it in, putting something positive in with it.
Mhm.
It's a side note, but again, I feel guided to say it is also like a lot of times people use sage, to clear energy.
Mhm.
And frequently I don't use sage all the time is because
Mhm.
sage will literally take all the energy out. It literally
Mhm.
will cleanse all the energy. And if you are, say you're like going through like a depressive time or some, you're heavy energy, if you don't put the if you don't have the capacity to put the positive energy back into the environment, then you're
Mhm.
just sitting there like in whatever your energy is at that moment. And if it's not the
Mm.
greatest of energy, that's all you got. So
Yeah.
always having to put the good energy back is what I tell
Mhm.
people. If they're going to use sage, you have to put the positive
Mhm.
back. You can't just get rid of stuff. You have to put positive in,
Mhm.
much like what you were saying. Fill it with
Mhm.
something good.
Or if they want to just clear out negative energy, Palo Santo will
Palo
just
Santo.
clear the negative and leave the
Yes.
good stuff too. So
Yes.
also just knowing what tool to use
Correct.
can support. But I love what you just shared about putting the good. Yeah, because then otherwise you kind of have all this like spaciousness, like what we just did. You have the spaciousness, and it's like, oh, like what
Oh,
now? So yeah, you just want to
yes,
make sure
yeah,
you set that intention.
yeah. All right. Eva, thank you so much. I know you have things, and I am going to be in touch with you because I feel like there's a lot that we need to speak on and collaborate on potentially.
Yes. Yes, I would love to.
Yeah, because our flow and feng shui, like, this is good.
Yeah, there's
This is good.
something here. I feel it too.
Facts. Facts. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna oh wait. If you have anything that you need to promote or say, now is the time.
I guess if anyone wants to just chat with me, find me on Instagram. Will that be linked in the show notes or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So just find me on Instagram, send me a DM, let me know that you came from this podcast, and we can chat about how I can support you. I like to tell people you have everything you need, but if you feel called to receiving support and have someone walk alongside you, I'm honored to and hold that space for you. So I just want people to know like the power's within you. It's not me, and don't give it to me. Like keep it for
Right.
yourself. And I've needed support along my journey, and if you feel called and vibe with me, I'm happy to connect and support you.
We'll have your Instagram. What's your Instagram handle?
Yeah,
I think
it
I okay. I was like, I think I did. I was like, I tagged you in something before this started. I was like, so I hope that was you. All right. I'm gonna stop it here. Thank you so much. And again, hang on for a second to make sure
Okay,
that it finished uploading.
thank you.